I want to welcome in rapper, actor, comedian, impressionist, freestyle
3 minutes
rapper,
early.
music producer, and parapsychologist, John Pierre. Welcome to the program, John Pierre. How are you today?
Welcome to
Hey,
the show.
I'm all right. It was SteamYard wasn't loading up for me for some reason. I finally got in, so.
Oh, that's all right. Not a problem. We just talk a little Batwoman while we were waiting for you. So.
All right, sounds good.
Great show. No.
So. How are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. It's a little hot here in California, but I'm doing pretty good.
Try being here in Arizona, where it's 116 degrees right now. It's
High
hot.
of 120.
I'm sure. Yeah, it's gonna be 120.
So my wife's from Arizona.
I feel it.
So our listeners may have recently seen you in a Ford versus Ferrari. Do you want to tell us a little bit about working on that film and kind of what it was like working with the likes of Matt Damon and that crew?
Did you get to keep a stopwatch?
What was that?
So did you get to keep the stopwatch that Matt Damon stole?
Nah, he kept it because he stole it. Yeah, so it was a great experience. I had not done serious acting for I want to say 5 years. I was focusing a little more on my music and stand-up comedy, and I was found on LA Casting by the casting directors. They like how I looked. I speak Italian, I look Italian, so they were like, "Hey, you want to be part of this period piece?" And I was like, "Sure," and it ended up getting boosted up to featured and doing a lot of stuff. I did 2 weeks of shooting initially, and I did a big scene with John Bernthal where he was in the Ferrari factory, and I was the final assembly line for the engine and had an interaction with him. And then there was a couple weeks of break before they started filming the Le Mans stuff, the big race stuff. And I ended up, the casting called me back. I ended up doing a month and a half of shooting with them. And we did a lot of stuff in relation to Matt Damon and Christian Bale and, what was happening during the race and all that kind of stuff. I was part of the main pit crew. That was kind of the experience. It was pretty great. I got all my SAG vouchers, so I'm eligible to join the Screen Actors Guild now. I got to work with James Mangold, John Bernthal, Matt Damon, Christian Bale, all these big actors, and it was an incredible experience for a young actor, and just got me more energized to do acting more.
I know you fangirled out. Christian, do it. Do the Batman voice. Say I'm Batman. I know you said it, and he's like, I'm Batman. He did it, right? He did it once.
I wish that experience-wise with these actors, like John Bernthal is very personable, friendly, funny, comfortable, just natural and normal with you. Matt Damon's the same. He creates a very fun vibe on set. Christian Bale is in character. You don't really see his personality. It's just him doing his thing. He was Ken Miles, and he was Ken Miles, and that was it. So I felt like I didn't get to know him as a person at all.
That's kind of a bummer when people do that. I guess you got to do that when you're like a method actor like that, and you got to you know what I mean?
He's a phenomenal actor. I'll give him that. And he had just finished the movie Vice, so he lost a ton of weight for the movie. So when we all saw him, we were pretty shocked because, man, he was pretty thin when he got to set.
No, he's one of those cool actors that you don't see Christian Bale. You actually see the person that he's playing, which is cool.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely true. And that was actually one of the very first movies that he used his natural British accent, because most of the time he changes his accent for the characters he plays. And it was kind of cool. It's like, wow, this is really the first time you hear his actual voice, like his actual accent.
That's pretty neat.
I mean, it had to have been fun with the lights and the sets and being a part of something that is so iconic to history. I mean, Ford trying to go in there and the creation of the Shelby, that's like how cool you get to go down in history as somebody that got to help represent such an awesome part of history.
Yeah, no, definitely 100%. And personally, I'm a big history buff, so that just adds to my excitement for the project. And it was really funny because as an actor, you get on certain sets and you feel the energy of the set. And first day on that set, all of us felt it. We were like, this is going to be something huge. You could tell by the dedication James Mangold had and just everything they put into the movie you felt like it was going to be something special. And by the time we saw the movie, we were like, yeah, we were definitely part of something special. So
That's cool.
So you're a history buff. That means did you already know about the history, or did you like do extra research and to help get that vibe into you so that you could, you know what I mean? So that you could get that, because, being in a pit crew, doing that in that time period where, I mean, like, that's like the adrenaline of adrenaline. Like, I mean, did you actually get that adrenaline when you were being part of that?
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, being a history buff, I definitely did some research. I do have an Italian background, so I definitely fit in, obviously, with being part of the Ferrari crew. I speak fluent Italian, so all my actual life skills and, things that I learned helped, because I know how to work on cars too. So understanding that was easier to work or pretend to work on cars when I had to on set and whatever. But I also, did some historical research to try and be accurate to, like, how these, Ferrari factory workers and pit crews would act, during this stuff. And the cool thing about being on a live set where they're actually racing the cars and the stunt drivers are driving, you don't have to pretend that much. Because, I mean, I think the first day of shooting, they did a lot of, like before the race started. So it was kind of boring. We all kind of got a little, because it was like 16-hour days almost every day on set. And we were getting bored, getting anxious. And then the end of the first day, we actually shot a couple scenes of the cars taking off. And, we were the pit crew, so we're like right next to these cars. And they started taking off.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of our energy just amped. We left that day like, that was sick. Like, in real life, we wouldn't be able to go like a NASCAR race or anywhere and be in the pit while the cars are taking off. But we were able to have that experience on set. And it's like, dude, that's why I love acting. You get to do so many things that in a normal life, you probably wouldn't be able to do. So
That's true.
Damn, that would be so much fun. They filmed that here in the States, right? Like it was in Hollywood they filmed it, or did you guys have to?
Yeah, they built the Le Mans set for the actual race at an old airport strip out in Agua Dulce, it's called. It's part of Los Angeles, but it's far out there in the boonies, like in the middle of nowhere. Even from LA, it's like an hour and a half drive. So, so it's out there. But yeah, it was all filmed in the States as far as I know. They did film some stuff, a lot of stuff in Georgia too. They had some of the race stuff they did out in Georgia. But most of it was filmed here in the States. Yeah.
That's awesome. I gotta switch gears here because so you ghost hunt and you dabble in the paranormal. This is something of a big interest of mine. I've got to know what got you into all that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll try to do a kind of an abridged version so I don't take up too much time. But
you can take
my first
you want.
I was here for it for sure. Like,
hey, sounds good. Fine, that's cool. I just like to, make sure we get all the stuff and we need to get in. But yeah, my first experience when I was 2 years old. I stayed at my grandmother's house, which was a very common thing. So it's not like it was unusual for that to happen. But this particular time, something unusual did happen. So my grandfather passed away when I was 3 months old on my mom's side. I don't really remember him or anything, but I recognized him from pictures. And I was sleeping in his old room in my grandma's house. And I woke up in the wee morning hours, and he was sitting in front of my bed trying to talk to me. And he was kind of white, glowing, transparent, but like I recognized him as he appeared to me how he looked in the photos I've seen of him. So I was just kind of sitting there, and I just started freaking out. I didn't know what was happening. So, I kind of started to cry, and this was like, what's going on? And he was in a wheelchair, because that's how I remembered him from the pictures. And he wheeled out into the dining room and disappeared through the wall. As scared as I was, I actually followed him and watched him disappear through the wall, because it was on the way to my grandmother's room. So I ran to her room, was crying, told her what happened. I said, I saw Grandpa, no in Italian. And she said, oh, it's just a bad dream, don't worry about it, whatever. And my mom built that story more, saying like, it's just a bad dream, you're just imagining things, whatever. So I got really quiet, because after that initial time, I started seeing stuff all over the place. Like I had experiences when I went out places, when I'd be wherever, but I stayed quiet because I figured if my family doesn't believe me, who else is going to believe me?
People are going to think I'm crazy. You see ghosts. I mean,
and you're a kid, so you're still learning. And you look to adults for that affirmation, and the adults weren't giving me the affirmation. So I was just like, I'm just going to stay quiet because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when I was about 8 years later, about 10 years old, my family sat me down, my mom, my grandma, and they said, look, we didn't want to scare you. You were very little, but we're actually sensitive to this stuff. My grandma, before she came here from Italy, she experienced tons of stuff out there and even still out here in the US. My mom was born here and experienced a lot of stuff. So come to find out, like, my family's sensitive and all of us have experienced this kind of stuff. So that's when it really, really like got me interested in the paranormal. I was like, well, how come it seems like some people experience it and others don't? Like, what's the theory behind that? And I had my parents buy me books. There weren't a lot of shows back in the 90s when I really started getting into it, but like X-Files, there was a show called Sightings on Fox where they talk about like UFOs and ghosts and kinds of stuff, and Unsolved Mysteries would do episodes on Supernatural. So that's where I mostly got my content and reading books. So I just got super into it, super invested. One of the jokes I have, because I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan, my mom went to see the original movie right before I was born. My birthday was literally Tuesday. So my mom saw it right before I was born. I'm as old as the movie is. So I joked that from the womb I was a Ghostbusters fan. Like, I heard Ray Parker Jr.'s song and like that was it. But I also grew up loving all the comedians that were in the movie and watching them. So I think that's another connection. But my dream, honestly, as a kid was I always heard Bill Murray say, I have my PhD in psychology and parapsychology. And I started doing research later on and found out there are actually degrees in parapsychology. And in 2009, I earned my PhD in parapsychology. So I actually run a nonprofit now. For my undergraduate stuff, I went to Cerritos College here in California, as well as Cal State Fullerton. And then I finished my doctorate at Progressive Universal Life Church. Mm-hmm. They have since changed their name, no longer offer the program they used to offer. I originally actually, USC used to offer a program, and I wanted to go to USC to get my degree in parapsychology. But by the time I graduated high school, the program was gone. So yeah, now there's less than a handful of colleges that actually offer that program. I know Penn State still does, and there's like two more, I think, around. I think they're more on the East Coast that actually offer the programs. So, so yeah,
that's
yes,
awesome.
I have a nonprofit.
Yeah, what's that about?
Me and my best friend met in high school, and we were both interested in the paranormal. When I started talking about it, he was like, "Oh, I actually love that stuff, but I've never done it." And I was like, well, why don't we try and find like haunted places and go check them out? And we had one of our English teachers help us write letters to like haunted locations out here and try to get in there and check it out. We had friends and family who owned like shops inside of haunted places. So they gave us access at night to go into these haunted places and check it out. We had a few mentors in the field too, who taught us how to investigate the equipment they use, the scientific methods they use to test it. So we just kind of built that way. And eventually in 2000, we started our 501c3 nonprofit. We didn't get nonprofit status until 2013 because you have to really prove yourself in order to get that status. So we just did years of work and study and helping people. And by the time I presented them with everything I had done, we got approved for our 501c3 called the Southern California Paranormal Detectives. And basically, clients contact us if they're dealing with anything paranormal, not ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, whatever it is. And we go out and investigate it or, try and help them whatever way they need help with. So,
what's the craziest thing that's happened while you were doing that?
Good question.
There's a few, but the craziest I think that sticks out for me personally, because it actually happened to me and I really don't have intense things happen to me that often. We did a case out here in Bellflower, California. It's not too far from where I'm at. I'm in LA right now. It's part of LA County. Mm-hmm. It's just not in downtown area. So we investigated this. We had a lot of weird stuff happen on this case, but the craziest happened at the end of the night, about 5 a.m. We were breaking down all our cameras and audio equipment, all our gear. We have like thousands of dollars worth of equipment we use to investigate this stuff. And the client's sister came in very late, and she just gave off this weird vibe. I was breaking down a camera on the staircase, and all of a sudden I felt like something huge was like charging at me. So I kind of braced myself because I thought something, was coming at me. And this is this small Latinx girl who very small and petite. But I just got this weird vibe, and I talked to one of my team members that was next to me. I think she's the source of this problem. I think she's why the activity is happening. And we continued breaking down our equipment, and this girl's eyes did not come off of me. I was going around walls, just going around the house, breaking down our equipment. And I'm like, I don't know what her problem is. She won't take her eyes off of me. And I got kind of weirded out by it. But I'm a professional. I just kept breaking down, putting stuff away. I was on one of my last pieces of equipment. I had one of my equipment bags right next to her where she was sitting on the couch. So I grabbed my piece of equipment, go over near her, even though, again, I was uncomfortable because she kept just staring at me. I put my piece of equipment away. I caught eyes with her for maybe 5-10 seconds. It was very short. All of a sudden, my chest got super tight. My eyes started watering and I couldn't breathe. It was the first time I actually ran out of a property. I felt for my own safety at that moment. I was just I need to get out of here. I don't know what's happening. I've never had this happen to me. And my wife's part of my team too. So she chased me out and checked on me. And as soon as I got out of the threshold of the door, I could breathe. My air came back, but I was still just kind of shaken up because I couldn't breathe for a little bit. So fast forward to the next morning, I woke up. I had a circular burn mark on my chest, and it was there for about a week, and it finally went away. But it looked like a burn mark just right in the center of my chest where I felt that tightness. And I've never had stuff like that happen to me. It's rare. I've had spiritual people tell me I have some authority on the other side, so stuff doesn't usually mess with me. But in that case, I had one of the most extreme things happen, and it was definitely intense. And I was worried about my safety because I couldn't breathe. So, and I didn't have any conditions that I could think of at the time that would cause that. So,
did you make a return visit, or was that it? You were like, "That's all, folks. I'm out."
Well, in most cases, it all depends on the client and what they want from us. Most of the time, they just want validation of what they're experiencing. We were able to come to the conclusion that girl who wouldn't take her eyes off me, we found out from the client, she actually was involved in witchcraft and did some weird stuff, and we don't know exactly what she was into. But it sounded like once they got the sister, the activity calmed down. So that kind of worked itself out. But most of the time, when we don't have that, most of the time you don't have extreme stuff like that happen. And most clients just want validation that they're not crazy, and someone like me can come in, use our equipment, use our knowledge and experience, and tell them, hey, this is what we think it is, or nothing. It's like your pipes are just shaking in the walls. It's not a ghost. You have bad piping or something. It all depends what it is and what it ends up being. But most of the time, people just want validation. Sometimes they go to their own religion and have a priest bless the house. My wife is indigenous. She might use sage to cleanse the house. So there's lots of different methods we can go about cleansing it or helping people out depending on what they want.
So I haven't been somewhere where I've lived where I haven't seen ghosts. There's the house I live in now. There's a ghost. It stands in my master bedroom, in my bathroom, and it looks into the mirror at us, and I can see its reflection in the mirror as it watches us while we lay in bed. And then it comes out, and then it walks up and down the hallway all night. And then it likes to take things from our hall closet and put them on our bed, like soap and towels and items.
It's just telling you to take a shower, bro.
I do take a shower. So I set a digital recorder in there in the bathroom to see what I could catch.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea. And then my question would be about the one that you said moves around, you can see. Does it do the same movements all the time when it walks around and when you see it?
No.
Or does it do different
Sometimes it walks up and down. Sometimes it'll come in the front door. Like you'll be sitting there in the room and it sounds like the door opens and slams.
Interesting. Yeah, that sounds definitely like an intelligent spirit, not because sometimes you have spirits that are residual spirits that they're not it's almost like it's a recorded tape. They just repeat the same motion every time at the same time. You have others that do different things and interact, and that usually means it's something more conscious of its surroundings.
I think this one's very conscious because it likes to do stuff. I had a ghost at my parents' house, and my buddy Chuck is in the chat right now, and he lived with me growing up. We had an evil spirit that lived in my parents' house.
Evil.
So when you would take a shower like normal, do your thing, and you would sit there, and as you're in the shower, everything would get knocked off. they'd knock off the shampoo, the conditioner. They would knock off the and then when you get done, you would open up the thing and they would start scratching you. You'd have all these scratches on your face and on your chest, and every day you get scratched every day. And it did it forever.
Yeah, I've only dealt with scratches in 2 of my cases, and the exact same thing happened in both cases. Obviously, different people in different locations, but okay. So basically, what happened in the 2 scenarios that I saw clients get scratched, they were standing right in front of me. They didn't touch the area that the scratches appeared at or anything, but both did not notice until the skin was actually broken and they felt the sting of the air on the open wound. Before that, they didn't react like somebody was scratching them or anything like that. It just, the scratches appeared, they were there, broke the skin, and all of a sudden it started to sting, and they're like, wait, I have scratches, and one was on a guy's back, the other one was on a guy's arm. And those are the 2 times I encountered scratching. And the exact same thing happened.
And you could watch it just go as you were like drying off, or like you were standing in the mirror, like, putting on deodorant stuff. You could watch it scratch your chest.
Oh, wow. That's pretty intense.
Yeah. And then there was 2 other ones that lived in my parents' house. There was a short, fat guy and a tall, bald guy. And they would just sit on the couch, and they would just turn and look at you and just go back to watching, looking forward. And they would turn and look at you again like they wanted to say something, but they were embarrassed. I don't know if they were embarrassed. I don't know if they were or they just, maybe it was like one of the ones where they were just in the loop. They didn't actually realize that they were ghosts.
Yeah, true. Sometimes one of the theories with spirits is,
no, go ahead.
Yeah, that they're when they usually die quickly and suddenly, they may not have like the process to go through to get to wherever the next life is. So like one of the accounts that's recorded and documented very well is people who die naturally in like a hospital, places like that. They almost have the exact same accounts, or families that are around them. They say that their family members say they see all their deceased relatives in the room with them, like guiding them and helping them move on to the next life. And they say when people die tragically and quickly without having that process, that they're afraid to kind of quote unquote go to the light, and they don't know what's happening, and they don't know that they passed because nobody helped them kind of move on to that, whatever that life is. And they kind of just go back to their normal routine. They'd rather stay in their home and places that make them feel comfortable than to go towards something they don't know.
I remember one time I was standing at my parents'. I was looking out the front window, and I seen this guy, and he had a carpet rolled up, and I saw 2 little feet sticking out of it, and he was holding it like this, and he was walking across the street, and he walked up into the neighbor's driveway, and we called the cops, and there was so many cops there roaming around, but after it got to the driveway, gone, nothing. And I was like, "Oh, wow, fuck!" I wonder what prompted that. Like, I wonder if that, if those are the kind of things, is something that happened there. Do you think is it random where in your experience where ghosts show up? Do they, what I mean? Is it kind of like they just get shot down somewhere and they're there, or are they usually, like you said, like some of them are stuck in the hospital? Do you think some of these are stuck in the loop of exactly where they did it? Like, that's what this dude does. Like, he did something at some time, and now he just keeps walking across the street with this rolled up.
Some of the theories why we have the random ones that just walk or show up in an area at certain times. It's almost like minerals. I know quartz is considered that. Different types of stones and minerals are actually natural, almost like recording tape, but they imprint with energy. So like if it's walking past the same area all the time, it's almost like it's imprinted on the land or on the natural, structures that are there on Earth. And that's kind of like a tape loop, and it just keeps playing over and over again where that intense tragedy happened or a big event happened. That's one of them. There's another theory that the dimensions between the spirit world and our world are very thin, and sometimes things cross over in our dimension and back into theirs. So it's like almost
That's
Yeah,
where it's
exactly.
or something.
Yeah, there's like a veil, and they're able to get through that veil for a minute, and then kind of go back, and they kind of pop into our dimension or plane, and then they pop back into theirs.
It'd be kind of fun.
So those are some of the theories.
Hey, Fred, look, it's open today. Let's go fuck with the living.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Kind of fun, you know what I mean? Now, have you ever been on a case like? Here's an experience that I encountered. So I lived in these duplexes. They were like townhouses connected. There was like 4 of them, and we had a spirit. And what he would do is he would walk down the hallway. And he would come to the edge of the bed. And I've told this story on the podcast before. And he would go, "Shut the fucking lights off!" And he just walked up and down the hallway all night and did that. And then it went quiet, and then you didn't see him again for a while, and then he came back. Upon realizing what was going on was when he was quiet, he actually went next door, and he would do it at the house next door, and he would walk up and down their hallway, and then they would go quiet, and he would go to the net. Like, we got to know our neighbors because of this spirit. Because, hey, was it? We were outside barbecuing and talking one time, and I was like, the craziest fucking thing happened. And I said it, and the other neighbors were like, "Are you fucking around?" And I was like, "Can you make something like that up?" No. He's like, "That happened last night." And this is how we got to know our neighbors, because there would be some kind of experience would happen in our apartment, and then it would go away, and then our neighbor would come over, and he'd be like, "Guess what happened?" I'd be like, "You saw the little black girl with the braids?" And they'd be like, "Yes." There was like 4 different ghosts that would rotate through these apartments.
Wow, that's interesting.
Isn't that insane? I've never heard in all the ghost shows and all the things, I've never heard where they go from like, and the only reason that I didn't think that they were bullshitting with me is because they would tell me things that it did at my house that I hadn't talked to them about it.
Yeah.
So like they kind of did the same things, but they would just switch apartments. And I was like, what, in your experience and in your training, have you ever seen something like that before? And what would cause them? Like, does that, I mean, they like these entities, they know exactly what they're doing. Is that what has come about? Like they have mastered this technique, and now they can just like do whatever they want? Or have you never heard of something like this before?
Not necessarily. Yeah, I don't think I've heard exactly that. One of the first cases I ever had was this. It was every Thursday, like once a month, this little girl would appear in the hallway in this house, and the people didn't know why it was happening. And eventually, we found out that's when the little girl was killed in that house, and that's why on every month on Thursday night, she would appear.
Oh,
and so that was like. Yeah, but it was just reappearing as a loop, like a tape loop. She couldn't interact with us, but she would just appear there. But I haven't heard necessarily that one, but I know that based on my studying that if they are intelligent haunts and they don't have limitations really if they're intelligent spirits. So they can pick up routines and patterns and kind of like do a little more interactive than, a lot of other spirits could. If they're familiar with the area, if they want to do that. So
in like that little baby, she was probably like maybe 5, maybe 4, but we used to hear her talking to our daughter in the other room. And this is how we figured out what she was doing was we could hear it through the baby monitor. She taught our daughter to climb out of the crib.
Wow.
We heard her like talking about it. And all of a sudden she could start. Yeah, just like my wife's in the chat right now. She's like, that little girl was so not a loop. She would talk to our daughter when she was a baby, and you could hear her in the monitor. Like we would listen to her talk to our daughter, and she would be sitting in the crib with her. Like she found it.
Yeah, no, that's not uncommon. They actually, one of the big studies they've done, and they do a lot more of this in Europe because they're a little more open to the supernatural out there than Americans are. And they've done a lot of studies of imaginary friends, and they found out that they're not so imaginary because these kids have vivid descriptions of their imaginary friends that are just, these kids wouldn't have known the, like Victorian style clothing. There's no way they would know that kind of detail.
Yeah.
And they did a lot of studies that a lot of imaginary friends aren't so imaginary. And children are more open to experiencing the paranormal because what do they say? Their minds are like sponges.
Mhm.
But when you're young, that sponge isn't soaked up yet. You're soaking in things as a child. When you're an adult, I think it's harder to experience the paranormal because your mind gets so cluttered with bills and work and family and all these responsibilities and obligations. But as a child, you don't have all those things. So you're much more open to experiencing that stuff. And the spirits know this too.
So if you're super in tune as an adult, what do you think is happening there then? Because, like you said, you've got your job, you've got bills, you've got life, you've got your car payment, you've got your house payment. So if you're still super in tune to this, like what, is it just because they know that you can be, so they like to keep you like in the loop, so to speak, or what do you think?
For me, studying a lot of psychology, it's a lot of your mindset. So a lot of people claim to be open-minded. They'll be like, I'll try any food, I'm open-minded. But an open mouth is not an open mind. So I think there's just a lot of confusion of what open-minded actually means. In order to be open, you really have to literally question everything, because if you let society, religion, education, if you let too many things actually control your perspective, you have blinders on at that point, and you don't leave yourself open to experience life. And in life, you can experience, that would be death. So I think it's more of that. It's having a different mentality. When you think outside the box, you tend to use parts of your brain that most people probably don't use to just work and live a normal life and just try to survive. When you open yourself up more and you truly have an open mind and say, okay, I question the constraints that are being put on me in the way I think. And when you do that, it's like you open up a door in your own mind to let other things in that don't normally sit there for most people.
Like, did eventually, like me, spirits and seeing ghosts and stuff, that stopped scaring me. Yeah. Like now I go, and are you like that now too? Like I go, oh, now that's okay. That just happened, and I kind of just, and I don't really talk about it anymore. And I just kind of go about my day because it's really not a big deal to me anymore, because it doesn't scare me anymore. Like the eviler stuff that still scares me, but like the random ghosts and stuff, like, like my wife will say, hey, the ghost put the soap on the bed. Okay. The ghost put the soap on the bed.
Yeah.
Just either put it in the shower or put it back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think with that mindset, it's a lot of how people, again, it goes back to how people view things. If it's unknown to most people and they don't experience it all the time, fear sets in very quickly with things that are unknown, especially to human beings. But as it sounds like in the case of you, and same with me, I've dealt with it so much, the little things don't really bother me. Most of the time it's exciting when things are quiet and something actually happens, because you sit for hours in the dark trying to coax this stuff to come out, and sometimes it doesn't want to. And then when something happens, I get more excited more than not. Like, oh, something flew across the room. That was amazing, or something moved, or we saw an apparition or something. That's great. But for normal everyday people, most of the time, if I tell them a story, they get freaked out. And they're like, I don't know how you do that. I can never do that. And I think that's just the difference with having so much experience with it. You learn, wait, this isn't threatening me. It's not hurting me by putting soap on the bed. So you stop worrying about it as a problem. It's only a problem, like you said, with the negative stuff.
Like my kids have even got used to it. Like my son says it stands in the corner of his room. And he's like, well, it's just there. He doesn't do anything. He just stands there. It kind of freaks them out. It kind of freaks everybody out when you hear the door open and shut, and nobody left. Like, because then you have to get up and you've got to walk out and you've got to check the door and you've got to look outside now because you heard the door open and shut. And it's not like in my house, it's not like this light shutting of the door where you just hear click. Like it's open and it slams. Like it is done with intent. Hey, motherfucker, don't forget about me.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, again, I would ask with that is that doesn't happen at the same time all the time, right? It's like at different times, or how does that one in particular happen?
It's just at different times, day, night, everything. It's like it's not just stuff that happens. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like ghost hunters and all these, you know, like a lot of people, like I'm sure you do too. You do it at night. You do it in the, you know, you do it during the witching hour, and you do it when it's supposedly the spirits are more prone to be able to be here. But like, you know, like the stuff that happens to me and my wife, it can be 9 o'clock in the morning, noon. Like it just, you know, and like for my wife, that goes, it doesn't happen to me, but it happens to her. It stands at the foot of our bed to this day.
Yeah.
And if like the first day we were here, it had to have been like the first night we were actually living in our house. I was gone, and like during the day, it was during the day, and she was, you know, and she works nights, I work days, and she woke up because it was standing there staring at her at the foot of our bed. It doesn't actually do anything. Like it's just kind of there, you know, like we've learned that we shut the bathroom door. It doesn't open the door. So we just naturally now we just keep the door shut because we know if we keep it open, it's just going to stand there and stare at us. Just like when I was trying to do EVPs of it, instead of it talking, all it did was it did this. It just kept smacking the recorder. And I was like, at least say something. Why would you just sit there and smack the fucking like it was smacking it, like, because I had put it in our closet. Since it stands in our closet, it stares into the mirror and it stares back at us. I figured I would put it into the closet so that at least if, you know, I could try to get it to say, you know, this is my house, motherfucker, something. Hey, you bought this comic and that I'm connected to something, anything.
Yeah.
Like it would be nice to know why this is here. Like, and you know, like I had like I have a mutual friend. She, you know, like I've grown up with her and stuff, and she came and like I bought like this. I bought like this. My wife got me this kit, and it had like a recorder to do EVPs, and then it had this meter to test electromagnetic. You know, if it was more or less, and you know, I brought someone over. I was like, you know, a family friend of ours, and you know, she came in and she did the ghost hunting thing, and she was like, oh, you know, why are you here, and did all this stuff, and it just didn't give a shit about her. Didn't give a shit. And it's kind of a bummer, but I mean, it would be cool to know, hey, why are you here? I mean, are there any techniques that you recommend that would be like something that we could try to be like I've said, you know, like they say, hey, just tell them you don't want to be here and ghosts will leave. That's a bunch of bullshit. That doesn't work. So to all the ghost shows, and what do you think to that? Like, it doesn't work for me. Has it worked for you?
It all depends. Now, most people recommend you don't investigate your own house. They just say, most people think it's taboo, and it doesn't, like, it can create worse activity in your home if you investigate your own house. So sometimes they say it's better to have like an outside person come in, and that may change the way it interacts because it's probably familiar with you and used to you now. So that might be why it's not responding or reacting to you in the way you'd like it to, because it's so familiar with you. It's like, whatever. That could be a possibility. I've had a few things when I first started doing this follow me home. And when it followed me and it appeared, my animals freaked out. My animals freaked out. That's how I knew something was there. Like one of them whispered in my name, and my dogs freaked out and ran away. And I knew something was there, but I kind of brushed it off. And then when I went to bed, it appeared in front of my bed. And all I did was say, I didn't mean to disturb you, because we had went to a location, a famous haunted location, and whatever followed me home for some reason. Only me. I called everyone that was with me. Nobody else had it happen, just me. And I said, I didn't mean to. I guess, yeah, I attract them, I guess. I have a type. But so all I said was, didn't mean to disturb you, didn't mean to bother you, rest in peace. And I kind of just said something simple, and he literally just vanished. And that was it. It was over. So it depends on, I think, how you approach it too. You know what I mean? Intent has a lot to do with how things react to you. The way we do it with my team, no matter what, if it's us or going out to people's places, we try to humanize the experience. We talk to it like it's a person. Mm-hmm. We say things like, we don't mean to disturb you or bother you. We're just here trying to help these people. We're trying to find out what's going on. We set a very normal tone. We don't pretend it's something supernatural. We just say, well, maybe if we humanize it and make it more down to earth, that it may get a better response. So trying that sometimes.
Asking them to leave.
Yeah. Right. Then ask him to leave. So we have done cleansings, but I've never just said, oh, leave. We've helped spirits cross over who were scared to go towards the light or whatever it was, and they've left and been gone. My wife is Native American, indigenous, and she'll use sage to, put a barrier around the property so we keep it out. But we've never just been like, oh, leave. We have more complex ways of going about it.
So I tried with a lot of Ghost Hunters and those shows. Hello. I'm sorry, but you guys, I'm sorry, I appreciate that you're here, but you're kind of scaring my children, and if there is somewhere else you can go, can you please move along? And I didn't say move along, but in a sense, that's what I said, and it was I don't give a fuck. It just kicks it.
Yeah. With that, it's tough because sometimes these spirits are attached to things or attached to places, and just telling them to leave it won't come out in a good result. It can. I've heard it be successful for people to just talk to it like it's normal and it'll go, but that doesn't happen. There's times we try to make spirits cross over that were stuck at places, and we thought you actually feel the energy leave, and we're like, oh, I think it left. And all of a sudden, we start hearing a noise in the room that we were just in, and it's like, oh, wait, it came back. It didn't listen to us. It didn't go all the way. It didn't leave, or it didn't go towards the light or whatever. So it's a complex issue because we don't understand the other side. We have the advantage of the physical, and they have the advantage of the not physical. So it's kind of like
you passed on. Then you would have the you kind of have both sides of the coin then, because now you're like, okay, I remember this 70 years of physical, but now I'm here. But so are you saying that maybe they lose touch with that physical aspect that they had and those memories that they had, and they just don't remember being physical anymore?
Yeah, I would say probably that. I think what I've always said about this stuff is there's consciousness to these things. Mm-hmm. But as you know, humans have flaws, and they forget things, and they get scared, and they don't do stuff. And I think spirits, particularly ones stuck here, have a lot of those problems. Otherwise, I think it'd be easier for them to move on rather than stick around. Because there are some that hated being alive. So I don't know why they'd want to stay, and some of them want to leave and can't. So you have lots of different scenarios that we've encountered, because my brother is a medium, and he usually communicates directly with the spirits. And you find that
I wish your brother would have come on with us. You guys will have to come back. You'll have to come back with your brother. How awesome would that be?
Maybe. Unfortunately, we had a big falling out recently, so that happened. But I don't hold any resentment, so I don't mind giving you his info and seeing if he wants to maybe talk with you. He's just has it out for me right now, and we're just not on good terms. So
I feel you. I feel you.
I got a question, and it might be it's a serious question. It might come off as stupid to you, but it's something I've always wondered about. If a person has a defect in life, like say deaf, their hearing loss, or they mute, whatever, do they carry that over into the spirit world? So when they pass on and they're a ghost, will they still have that same defect? So maybe like Kyle's saying is they can't talk or they're mute or they have to find a different way to communicate.
As far as I've heard, again, there's no physical limitations from what I know when you're on that spiritual side, and from what I understand, and I don't know if it's 100% correct, but those things shouldn't be a detriment to you or affect you once you've left the physical world, because that's strictly a biological, like physical thing that you can test, and it usually wouldn't have an effect on your actual spirit or consciousness. So it shouldn't. I mean, what you learned because of that particular defect, you may be able to communicate that way if you need to on the other side, but I don't think it'll hinder you from communicating in other forms if you've passed on, because that seems to be a physical defect. That's not necessarily part of your soul or consciousness. That's actually biological.
I just hope when I die, I'm not fat. I hope my spirit is skinny. Then I don't have to go on a diet.
I mean, I don't think you'd have to in the spirit world anyway. I don't think it matters at that point. It seems like you could probably appear in any form once you're not physical anymore. Because there are people who have died when they were much older and they appear as children, as spirits. So, I mean, I've encountered lots of different things that don't relate to when the person actually passed away. So
now I know you said you kind of gave us the coolest like thing that's happened to you. What's the coolest place you've gone to investigate? Like, have you gone to investigate like the site of like the Sharon Tate murder or the Manson murders or in California or anything like that?
Winchester Mansion.
Oh, I've been to the Winchester a couple of times just to check out. I mean, we didn't get to fully investigate, but I've been there. And I took like the extended tour so I could like check out the more haunted places in the Winchester house. So I've been there a few times. Coolest places, definitely we did Spawn Ranch. I was on an episode of Haunted History on the History Channel, and we investigated Spawn Ranch where Charles Manson actually stayed and killed, what's his name? Shorty Shea on the property. So we actually got our evidence on the TV show as well, because one of our meters, when we were asking questions to Shorty Shea, it responded to our question. So yeah, that was one of the cooler places we've been to. We did a web series for a couple of years, and we actually went to the first two sites that the Zodiac killer killed his victims. And the first site we went to, we caught an anomalous light behind my brother on camera, and there was no cars going by. It's in the middle of the country where there's nothing at, and we couldn't explain. Have we ever caught an orb? Is that what you said?
No. Is that what it was? Was it like an orb?
No, it was an actual like light, but it was caught with our full spectrum camera. A full spectrum camera is a modified camera that actually allows the lens to take in every kind of light, even light not visible by the human eye. So we had our camera and we were interviewing my brother about what he was feeling on the site. And behind him, a light actually reflected off of the gate behind him. But nobody saw it with their own eyes. We saw it on the camera, and we were all standing right there. So that was really strange. We looked for cars. We looked for any source of light. There was none. So that was one of the coolest things to happen, because we only caught it on camera and nobody actually saw it.
Have you actually seen an orb?
I've seen balls of light actually follow us while we were doing investigation.
I have been followed by a ball of light. I was going to get to that. Dude, we need to go ghost hunting together. That's the end of it, man. I need to be part of the group. Yeah, like he wasn't my brother-in-law at the time, but he was my buddy, and we used to party in his backyard. So if you were seeing if there was anything going on, there was this little path between houses that you'd walk to get into the backyard so that you could see if they were there. And I went back there, and there was this like orb, like this ball of light. It was just hovering. And I was like, holy shit. It was crazy though, because it didn't like produce light everywhere. It produced light going just straight down to the ground. So it was like 5 feet off the ground. And so it didn't like light up the backyard, but it lit up like below it. And then it kind of was like this, and it kind of just like floated away. and then it went out of his backyard and it took a right and it just went down the street. Like there's like a convenience store like 4 houses down, and my wife lived 4 houses down at the time. She came out. The people at the convenience store came out, and this ball of light is just floating down the street.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, my experience was at another famous location we've been to lots of times called the Suicide Bridge in Pasadena, California. During the Great Depression, lots of people committed suicide off that bridge, and even past that, even in recent years, a few suicides have taken place. We actually had a Japanese magazine come out from Japan. They were called Lovist, and they were doing a story on the paranormal, so they came with us. And there was a pinpoint of light. It was about a quarter size, and we're walking around. And the people who were with us who were doing the story we all saw this. On the trail we were walking under the bridge, this quarter-sized ball of light was just trailing behind us. And eventually it just kind of came closer and vanished. But it was very pronounced. Everybody saw it. They were freaking out. They were from Japan. They didn't know what was going to happen. And they were all females too. And they were like, oh, freaking out. And like, we're trying to calm them down as much as we can. They spoke a little English. But yeah, that was really interesting. And we've caught a few orbs on camera and on pictures, but we're very wary of those because it's not been proven that it's actually ghosts. Mm-hmm. But they do appear strange sometimes. So we dismiss 90% of them, but 10% of them you can't explain. They look like a nucleus. They have very specific structure to them. And that's when we say this could be something. So
every time, speaking of those, that same apartment complex where I was telling you that the spirits would go from room to room, from apartment to apartment, I would stand in the courtyard and every picture of me had those around it. And now when I take pictures, they're not around me, but the entire time I lived in an apartment complex, anytime there was a picture taken of me, those were like, they would like be all on this like right side of me and like up. It was like, and it was right around the Sixth Sense time. So everybody was like, what the fuck are you that fucking like that weirdo in Sixth Sense? And I'm like, yes, yeah, I'm making it happen, fuckers. Yes. Like, no, we're just taking pictures and like, it just happened to be, but it never happened again outside of that complex to me.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, the only thing I can relate to that story is I actually used to work at Disneyland for quite a few years, and there's a little boy spirit, and he appears all over the park because, I was kind of the resident ghost guy when I worked there. So everybody told me all the ghost stories. I experienced stuff while I worked there. But this little boy, his description was like, oh, we saw him over here at Star Tours. And then, we saw him in Mickey's house. We saw him in Haunted Mansion. So this little boy loves to go around the entire park and appear and mess around with people at different places. So that's the only thing that reminds me of your story of the spirits appearing in different areas. Like this little boy loves to play around and mess with people all over the park.
So what's the backstory on that? Like, what do they think that is? Because that's a famous Disneyland story.
It is, and there's really not a lot of info on it. The one sad thing that's a reality for Disney is they don't like that kind of publicity. They deny that anyone's ever died in the park, even though people have. But they
bound to happen.
Yeah, but in the early days of the park, they had a lot more power over what got out in the media, and they were able to cover up a lot more things that happened. Now it's a lot harder because there's so many more people, there's social media, there's all this stuff. So we can't come to a full conclusion of why that spirit is there, but my knowledge of Disney and history is that they were able to cover up stuff back in the day a lot easier. And in those days, there were accidents and tragedies, and those rides were new, and there were problems. So, I mean, it easily could have been something that happened on the park. It even could be a spirit that's actually on the land. Also, and I work there, I'm a witness to this, people dump human ashes in the park constantly. So sometimes the spirits of those ashes that get dumped there, they stay there once the ashes are dumped. So that's one of the theories as to why that little boy's there, because she could put her little boy's ashes in the Haunted Mansion. Disney told her no.
She
went by herself and ashes in the ride. that's a big health risk thing. So they have to shut the ride down, get special equipment, vacuum the ashes up. Like it's a big thing. And they have to make sure they're all
ashes of the ocean and stuff. Like, you can't just you can't stand on the on the beach and dump it into the tide pool or nothing. Like, you have to get permits and go out X amount of miles, and there's a lot of things you have to do.
There is, but the people that have done it, and I remember one morning, this is the craziest morning we ever had working there. I worked at Space Mountain at the time. I got there just shortly before opening, and all of a sudden they hear, we're down, there's human ashes all over the walkways. Somebody dumped it in here. And it wasn't just Space Mountain, it was all the major rides in the railroad. So like, we think somebody actually dumped multiple people's ashes all over the entire park on all the major rides. So guests were livid because every major attraction was down for like 3 hours that morning. And people were just mad. Like, and
they probably had like a business where they told everybody, hey, if you want your ashes dumped at Disneyland, we'll do it for you. They waited until they had like 30 people or 50 people.
Can you imagine that? Hey, $200, I'll dump your ashes at Disneyland. So what you do is you just fill up like 4 vials and just throw the rest in the garbage. And so when you're fucking riding in the Indiana Jones ride, you just dump like this little vial like this big. It's like, and then like you're on a small road, you're like,
I bet you
you would think it's actually much more dramatic than that. They actually bring the full bag of ashes and dump it. People have seen people do it in Pirates of the Caribbean. I have witnesses who have told me they've seen it. So they bring the full, like, however many pounds of the ashes are in the bag and like dump it there. We actually suspected that morning that a cast member was trying to make extra money, and he brought it in because the places he got it, only employees could have put it there. Like, a guest wouldn't have been able to reach certain places. So we think the employee was like, pay me $500 and I'll dump your family's ashes here.
I've heard that, and maybe you guys already talked to this. By the way, I'm Brian. Nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you, Brian.
I've heard stories, and let me know if you guys already talked to this about
we already talked about it.
About Disney actually being a really tough place to work.
No, we haven't. We just started the Disney talk. It was just
like they don't treat their employees very good.
For 2 years. It was awful, man. It was. When I first left, I resented them so much. I didn't want to set foot in the park ever again. Like, they did a lot. I worked there for 10 years. I had to threaten legal action and the labor board 5 times each while I worked there.
That's exactly what I've heard. I've heard that.
So they're pretty horrible.
Don't you like they bring, like, I heard, I have a buddy who's a chef now, but for one of his internships he had to go work at Disney World, and he was telling me stories about how when you work for Disney, a lot of, or not everybody, but a lot of people, they put up in like apartments and stuff, and it's like 6 people to an apartment with 2 rooms, and it's crazy. Like, and your hours.
That's called the Disney College Program. Yes, and that is true. They also take out rent from your paychecks. Even though they give you a ton of hours, they take your money out. Yeah, that's definitely, they came to my college when I was going to school, and they offered that program. And the first thing I asked them was, well, I'm an entertainer. Like, can I get an entertainment? Oh, that's not part of the program. Like, well, then I can just go work there. I don't need to do an internship with you guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it definitely is. And then, unfortunately for me, just to be open and honest of why I feel the way I do about Disney, I was actually severely abused by my family growing up. So I stayed with Disney so long because I was used to that kind of treatment. Granted, I fought them when they pushed me into corners, but it's just, it got to a point when I finally quit that I was just tired of the treatment. They treat you like children there. It's just a big game. They don't care about you at all. Like I said, I had to report them, or threaten to report them, to the labor board and the state, and I brought in attorneys to look at documents they try to force me to sign. So they're pretty bad, and they take as much advantage of their cast members as they can. And to top it off, what you just brought up, Florida's worse. Florida is not regulated like California is. They don't have OSHA, they don't have DOJ. Like, they do a lot of shady stuff. They'll send stuff and spend more money to fix it cheaper in Florida than to spend that actual money and do it regulated here in California. So there's a lot of stuff that's just shady about the way Disney does their work.
let me ask you something real quick. Were you a Disney fanatic growing up, or is that why you went to Disney, or was it just a thing? Because listen, when you talk about Disney fans, there's a group of Disney fans where it's basically like a cult. I mean, Disney fans get rabid, and I'm not dogging them because that's cool, but
Yeah.
Disney fans are like Scientology without having the religion, man. It's crazy.
It's true. So I loved certain things about Disney growing up. Like I love Mickey Mouse. I loved Mickey Mouse. After I worked there, I don't have as much admiration for the company or the characters. But growing up, I loved Mickey Mouse. I'm an impressionist. I do a great Mickey impression. So like there's things that I'm connected with Disney. I've never been like a super fanatic, but I went there growing up because I grew up in California, Long Beach, California. I was far from there. But I wasn't a fanatic to the point where like everything I owned was Disney. I have only Disney movies. Like I'm not to that level. I just enjoyed it as a child and resented it after working there.
I gotta jump in real quick. I don't want to distract from the main topic, but you threw something in. I think we can't just like skip past. You do a Mickey impression. Can we get some of that?
Oh yeah, of course. So I'll do it in the way I do it with my stand. So funny enough, when I was having some of the worst times working at Disney, I did a whole rap album about Disney. I put out all the dirt. I aired out all the dirty laundry with that album about how they really operate. And one of the tracks I did, I rapped like Mickey Mouse over the "What's the Difference" beat by Dr. Dre. And so I rap like Mickey Mouse. So I'll do a little of that. And I put that in my stand-up comedy as my closer, and I always shut down the comedy clubs with that. I don't have the beat on me right now because I'm holding my phone. But yeah, so I'll do that for you guys.
Okay.
It's the number one mouse in the house. And if you have any doubt, I'm on your clothes and your mind and your mouth. And you know what I'm rhyming about. Getting dough in the highest amounts. I just get it and bounce. So yeah, you know, the little
great,
sample.
man.
Thanks.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
That's awesome.
That's what's up.
So do you still tour much for comedy? Do you do the circuit?
Do I do what? The circuit. Not recently. COVID obviously has shut down a lot of my opportunities right now. I was doing a lot of acting gigs, movies, TV shows, commercials, and then when COVID hit, like everything got pushed back. It looks like in the fall, some gigs are coming back into production. But stand-up comedy, what was that?
Do you come to Arizona often?
I used to. My wife's originally from there. She's actually Navajo from the Navajo Nation. So we used to go quite a bit to visit her family. So every so often we do. Not as much as we used to.
So let's hear. Do you have any stories about haunted comedy clubs? Because I know there's the stories about the Comedy Store being super haunted and all that fun stuff. Have you ever dealt with any spiritual haunting type paranormal shit in comedy clubs?
Not actual activity, but I am an empath. I'm sensitive to it. So when I'm in, like when I went to the Comedy Store, I felt it right away. Like it's a pretty strong presence that's in there. But it didn't like mess with me or anything. And it's weird because I'm sensitive to it. They know that. Like I work at the Queen Mary. I think I might have, I don't remember I mentioned that yet.
Wow.
I think I might have earlier, but I work at the Queen Mary for their Halloween event. I'm one of their main characters for the maze is Samuel the Savage. I do their commercials. I'm on merch, all that kind of stuff.
I've always
the first year I actually worked, and I grew. The first year I worked there, and I grew up in Long Beach, so I went there a lot growing up because I love haunted stuff, obviously. But the first time I worked there, the spirits I felt were like checking me out and getting used to me. So I felt them, and even there was times where I was getting ready to scare someone, and I thought they were coming around the corner, and nobody was there, and I was like, "Oh, it's just the ghosts again. Okay, whatever." But the second year I went back, you could tell like they were used to me already, and they stopped. I stopped seeing them coming, like walking down the halls and stuff like that, and I was like, "Oh, they're just used to me. Like, yeah, this guy's cool. He's chill. Like, whatever." so yeah, I'm similar to that. I think I have been to the Comedy Store a few times. More than a few times. And I think it was like the first few times I really felt the energy strong, and I felt like by the third or fourth time I went there, like it just kind of dissipated. Like it kind of felt me out and was like, yeah, he's cool, he's chill. So
yeah, for people that don't know, the Comedy Store in California, in LA, specifically the Comedy Store in LA, used to be a mob-owned nightclub called Ciro's, and Ciro's was like the place where the mob just hung out in LA. It's where a lot of the actors hung out, and they had basically a couple rooms back there. I think one of them might be the Belly Room now. That was like a hit room, and that's where they would take people, and they would never come out. So there's a lot of stories about, especially the hauntings at the Comedy Store in LA, and I love the history aspect of all that stuff, and with the paranormal, spiritual paranormal stuff, hauntings, you have a huge history aspect, and I love digging into that. So. Is he muted? He might be muted.
Yeah, I don't know if he's muted or his audio's not working.
I see here. Yeah, we just lost your sound. You might be muted. Figure it out.
No, this was so much fun.
We'll get it figured out. You might want to check.
How about now?
There we go.
Yes, we are back.
Cool. I don't know what happened, but I turned it off and on and it worked, so that's good.
That's usually how you fix things.
Yeah.
Turn it off, turn it back on.
Yeah.
Tech support 101.
That's right.
There you go. Did you turn it off?
Yeah. The number one question, is it plugged in? It's funny.
All right.
So is there anything you want to
All right, so what was the last topic?
to see?
Yeah, actually, I released a single today. It should be showing up on Spotify and all platforms. As a rap artist, I have an album coming out in the fall I'm working on. The title's tentative, so I don't really have that set. But the song I released today, I put the lyric video up on my YouTube. It's called How Many. My artist name is MC Pierre. You can check me out at www.mcpierre.com. That's the letter M, the letter C, PIERRE.com. And I have links to all my social media, my music. It's mostly my music, but you can find my comedy, my paranormal stuff on there too. And I have all my stuff on there. So
yeah.
So what made you discover that that you have this passion for spitting flows? Like seriously, like it's not an easy thing to do. Like
No, I'm just laughing at the way you put it. Spitting flows.
Spitting flows.
Same.
but like
it's not what I do, so it's not inaccurate.
Dropping bars.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's kind of dark. I think I kind of might have mentioned it earlier a little bit, but I was severely abused growing up, and I couldn't express myself in the household and by my abusers. So my outlets became comedy and music and entertainment, and like I was able to just like express myself so naturally in those ways. They became my passions. Rap, because I was raised in Long Beach. There was a lot of gang violence, a lot of drugs. I saw a lot of crazy stuff on my block. People getting shot, dead bodies just like left in front yards. Like the cops didn't even cover it up. We're still dealing with whatever was going on. So like I understood rap because I grew up, I knew what the rappers were talking about in LA because I grew up in that area. And I think that's what connected me to the music originally. And then when I expanded my knowledge of rap, because growing up on the West Coast, it was only gangster rap, and I understood it, but rapping like that didn't make sense. I don't pretend to be a gangster, nor am I one. So it didn't feel natural to like use that type of, wording in the way I write. So my friends introduced me to a lot of East Coast rap, and it was more conscious and lyrical.
Hence why you have the Wu-Tang shirt on.
Oh, we lost his audio again.
Yeah, we lost your audio again. Try it one more time.
Oh, this is Wakanda.
Yeah, it's Wakanda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wakanda.
Try turning your audio on and off again. We lost you again.
Yeah.
Let's see that.
There we
How
go.
we doing?
There you go.
Yeah, it's a Wakanda shirt. My wife knows I like Wu-Tang, and we love Black Panthers, so she found that shirt and got it for me. So yeah, definitely Wu-Tang. I actually early on from 06 to 08, I did a lot of freestyle battles out here in LA. Kind of earned a good name out there, battling a lot of MCs. I got to open up for Killer Priest and a lot of Wu-Tang Clan members, Ghostface Killah, and they liked my music. So I actually started touring whenever Killer Priest came down to the West Coast with him because he really liked me a lot. So I really connected with a lot of those East Coast artists because my style, even though I'm West Coast, is very East Coast, very conscious. And it's expressing myself. Since I couldn't fight my abuser, I used my music to kind of fight the system because the system's abusive. So
Yes.
Yeah, fuck yeah. What?
Oh,
I
go
got
ahead,
a quick
Brian.
question. Who is there anybody out right now that might not have a huge following that you're really listening to, that you're really into right now in the music scene?
I was introduced to this artist named Gremlin Raps. His name's Gremlin, but Gremlin Raps is how you find him on like YouTube and social media. He's growing bigger by the day, but he's not super huge yet. And he talks about a lot of real issues. So he's getting big pretty quick. He relates to a lot of people. I think his hashtag is like broken people. So he talks a lot about like bad relationships and heartbreak and things like that. And he's just really connecting with a lot of people. So I definitely like his stuff. He's very real, down to earth. And a friend of mine who's up and coming rapper too. He's a young kid. Introduced me to that guy Gremlin, and I liked his stuff a lot. So,
who are your influences in hip hop and rap?
So if I go way back, the first group I fell in love with growing up was Bone Thugs and Harmony, and like just the way their flow style, the way they rap fast, I really liked them. I rapped a lot of their lyrics when I was younger. Not to say that others didn't influence me, but for some reason, Bone Thugs really like caught my attention when I was really young. But when I became really into rap and I wanted to do it, my friend introduced me to Immortal Technique. He's from the East Coast, very conscious political rapper.
Badass.
That changed my life. At that moment, when I heard Revolutionary Volume 2, I knew that I wanted to rap, and I was going to rap like somewhat like that, but I have my own style. But I still very much am influenced by that style. So
yeah, talking about the social issues of the day and Mortal Technique. If you guys don't know, if you guys don't know much about him, you guys need to go check him out. That dude is the real deal. There's a lot of hip hop artists out there that like to make up stories and this and that, but Mortal Technique really sounds like he's doing it for a reason and not just to get big and make money and stuff like that. So real quick, somebody in the chat asked, have you ever been to Gettysburg to do any haunting investigations?
Sadly, I have not. We have made it out of California. We've done cases in Arizona. We've done cases in Nevada. I'm trying to think where else. But not, no, unfortunately, I haven't been to Gettysburg.
Go again, Cal?
I said next time you're in Arizona doing a case, please call us.
Yeah, reach out.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I would love to like have a GoPro on, and like I seem to be a magnet for this stuff. So like I would love to be able to help try to answer questions and bring stuff into the room so that we could like show the world like what is happening to people. Like
yeah.
Before.
Oh yeah, no, that would definitely be great. So if I do, for sure, we'll definitely stay in touch and see if we'll make it out there and get together.
Before we let you go, I want to take a quick cue from my co-host over at the Bogcast and ask a question because you're an actor. And can you give us a audition horror story where some audition that you've been on and something just went crazy, out of whack, an embarrassing situation, something like that?
Let's see. I mean, really, the only one I could think of is I've auditioned for America's Got Talent a ton of times. I've rapped impressions. I've done stand-up comedy. I've done my original songs. I've tried everything for that.
You've done America's
one particular time at the LA convention. I've auditioned for it.
Did you do it when Howard Stern did it?
I didn't get on.
Tell me you did it.
Yeah, because I have auditioned for. Yeah, but unfortunately, I didn't make it on the show. There's like pre-auditions before they do the TV stuff. So like, I never made it to like the actual judges.
What they don't make it look like that on TV. They make it look like everybody gets in front of the 4 judges. Like you have that opportunity.
Nope.
For golden fucking buzzer. They're a bunch of fucking liars.
You want to know the reality of that, though?
Yeah.
They actually, 90% of the acts, they actually select and find that are kind of up-and-comers to boost them. If you're lucky, only on a good season, 10% of the people who actually just audition make it. but I researched most of the acts, and they were famous in the small towns they came from. So they actually go out and travel the country and find these acts before they even audition.
I am a huge America's Got Talent, and
I'm not. Wow.
Shit on it for me, which is cool because that's shitty that they do that because they make it look like these people come from around the world and they go to this place to audition and they look to know that they're actually planting what we're seeing is like I guess it's just like everything else that we get to watch in the media.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise, reality TV is not reality. That's the harsh lesson I had to learn in this business, especially with the paranormal. I've turned down five deals for TV shows because they wanted me to be fake, play a character. I'm like, so you're telling me to use my skills as an actor, but you're not going to pay me as an actor. Why the hell would I do that? That's just stupid. I'm being taken advantage of. Oh, it's the exposure. Thank you. Yeah, it's like, I want to get exposed to COVID. Like, no, I'm not stupid. I'm out of here.
But,
let me tell you the audition story.
Let's hear that audition horror story real quick.
Anyway, this one because I felt like I finally made it on America's Got Talent. So I went to the initial audition, and that's the trickery of their editing. People do show up from all around the world. I've met people from all around the world at these auditions, but they film the preliminary auditions. Nobody's there. No famous people are there. It's like some low-level producers you never even heard of. And those people select the people they think are talented. So I went in. I did Baby Got Back, but I did it in voices. So I performed Baby's Got Back as Christopher Walken, Mickey Mouse, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Kermit the Frog.
I gotta hear it now.
Do it. Please do it for us.
You can't keep dropping stuff like that and not think we're going to ask you to do it.
Yeah, this will be the magnum opus of the interview. Let's hear it.
You did a Mickey rap. Now we got to get some of this. We're sorry, but we're not.
That's all good. It's all good. Hopefully I remember all the lyrics of the song right now. But I like big butts, and I cannot lie. You other brothers can't deny. When a girl walks in with an itty-bitty waist and a round thing in your face, you're sprung. Wow, pop, tough, and you notice that pop was stuffed, huh? Deep in the jeans she's wearing. I'm hooked and I can't stop staring. Oh, baby, I want to get with you and take your picture, huh? Yeah, so, something like that.
And turn me down.
Than's you, brother. This is a good interview.
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, no, okay, so let me tell you. Hold on. So I did the initial audition for this female producer. I was in a room of at least 30 people. Everybody did their thing. I was the only one that did something like that. I was the only one that got called back in the room. She's like, hey, that was great. You're funny as hell. Don't tell anyone. There's a secret round I'm going to send you to. There's a lot more producers in there. Suggestion I have, move around a little more. But other than that, you are hilarious. I'm like, oh, shit, I'm finally going to get on the show. All these years, finally. So I go into this other room. It's like all across the convention center. There's like 2 other people there. I look like the most normal, though. When I get in there, it's the people with the craziest outfits. There was a 90-year-old lady who had a bunch of half-naked guys she danced with, and she made it to that round. There was some guy with a dog with crazy hair. Like everybody in there looked like freak. And I just had a t-shirt and jeans on. It was a funny t-shirt, but yeah, I'm like, okay, well, I mean, maybe I actually have talent. That's why I'm in this room. Awesome. So I had to wait another hour to get in. So finally, I get into the secret round. It's 2 females and 2 male producers. So I go in, I took the lady's suggestion, I auditioned with a little more movement, just acting out like I'm Christopher Walken, like I'm Arnold, I'm just really going all out with my characters. The female producers go, wow, that was hilarious and funny. The male producers sat there stone-faced and went, that's a different way to do impressions. And they just sent me out of the room and that was it.
Next time.
What the actual F just happened?
You need to have rip away Adidas pants and you're naked. And you go,
yeah, apparently.
I would have got them, yeah.
Your shit.
Oh, I'm sure I would have got them. They love that kind of stuff.
That
was the crazy because, when you put your all into something and you know you're doing something that nobody else is doing, and they act like you did nothing. Like, wow, like yawn, I was boring.
Yeah.
For real.
So that, yeah, like I felt really insulted by the male producers, and like that, I was confused when I left that room. Like, so the females loved it; they were like, "That was great, you're very funny," and the male producers were like, "No, that's different."
Jesus.
And there was times when they were filming, and I did these auditions similar. I did other stuff. Sometimes I just did the Mickey Mouse rap I did for you earlier. And there was times where earlier on, when the show was, they used to film everything. And they would film the auditions. There were times I would audition with my impressions, and the camera guys would fall off the camera laughing when I was doing my impressions, and I still never made it. And I was like, dude, your camera guys couldn't stay on camera, but yet I can't get on this damn show.
It's fucking rigged. Fuck that show.
Yeah, right. Where can everybody find you on like social media? You let them know where where they can find your music. What about social media and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah. For sure. So our main website is www.mcpierre.com. That's the letter M, the letter C, PIERRE.com. And you'll find that's mainly my music, but my comedy, my paranormal stuff's on there too. I have links to everything. On social media, my handle is Talentedid. That's at Talentedid. That's talented with an extra ED. I do so much. That's my kind of branding of myself, being Mr. Talentedid, because I do so many things. And yeah, that's kind of the main stuff. You can find me all over social media with that, my music, and all my other stuff. So.
Oh yeah, you got to come back on the show, man.
Oh my God! Please come back up. Please not
stay in touch. Let's figure out.
We'll hit you up, brother. We appreciate you.
Your contact information, please don't be a stranger. This was probably one of the funnest interviews I've ever done, and I appreciate it, and I thank you.
All right, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. I had fun with you guys too. Fun.
We'll catch you next time.
For sure. You guys take it easy. Have a great night.
Thanks for joining. Have a good night.
You too. Bye. You too.
Bye.
Later, man.